For another screencast, we're going to be looking at the development of the fixed layout ebook. Now we're working from InDesign with a document that's been prepared for print. We have looked previously at building this same file for a reflowable ebook. And what we need to know about are some particular aspects of the fixed layout as we move forward to this project. You'll see that I've got on the screen at the moment things set up just as if it's ready for print. We have a half title, frontispiece, title page, table of contents, etc., etc. Just the normal pages that you'd expect to find in a print book. And we have previously made a reflowable version for the ebook of this. Now there's just one or two things to point out to you. When we did the reflowable ebook, we used the articles panel to turn some things off and to also make sure that we order the content correctly. For example, in the reflowable ebook we didn't want the half title, so we actually turned that off, making sure that wasn't exported. Similarly, we didn't include the table of contents on the page, we only used it in the logical table of contents. Now the fixed layout ebook from InDesign doesn't allow you to use the articles panel. So what you get that you see on the screen is exactly what you're going to get in the fixed layout ebook. The book that we prepared for print and also for the reflowable ebook utilised a double page spread. So each of these pages is a separate page. This would of course be a separate page in a print book. Although we have here what looks like a landscape, these are two separate pages. Now my strategy in this particular case for the fixed layout ebook is that I want to make this into a landscape page. So effectively what I want to do is to glue together the side by side. I want to make sure in the end that what I get is in my fixed layout ebook is a book that looks exactly like this, with the text and the images laid out exactly as they are. You'll also notice that I have things like the headers and the footers. Footers, of course, contain the page numbers, and my header has a running head. And that aspect of it is also going to be included in the fixed layout ebook. Because the fixed layout ebook, everything that you see on the screen will appear, including all of those items on the master pages. Now, the first thing that we must be aware of is that we have a single page to start with. So when we make this into a fixed layout ebook, doubling up the pages, we're going to effectively get a blank page on the left and then our half title. Now clearly we don't want this half title, and this is where our first complication arises. So what we want to do is to go into our pages, and as you can see with our pages panel, which you've got down here on the right hand side of the screen, I've got the pages laid out just as they are, as I'd expect, across the spine of the book, and the first page of course being on its own. But what I want to do is to put another page to the left of that, and this actually is something a little bit fiddly, so I'm going to just explain how we do this. First of all, we're going to right click over the page itself, and then we're going to say that we don't want the document pages to shuffle. We turn that off. Then what we're going to do is to add a page before that page. And as you can see, we do get a second page, but what we get is 2 pages to the right of the spine. So the next job we have to do is to start a new section to the right to make sure that we can, this page on the right, I'm going to go into the numbering and section options and start a new section there. So as you can see, this is starting a new section. Now what I can do is to drag and rearrange that first page to the right of the spine. Okay, now we've got 2 pages side by side to start the whole document. So the question is, what do we want to do with this particular double page spread? Well, rather than start with a rather mean looking half title, what we're proposing here is to do something a little bit more exciting with this. So I'm just going to get rid of some of this content, get rid of some of these text boxes that we don't need, move this text box off of the page, and then I'm going to place an image onto the screen here. Well, in fact, before I do that, let me just create a text box to put this content in. So let's place this image. Into here. And then what we're actually going to do here is to go to Object, Fitting, and fit the content proportionally to the frame. Okay, there's our image. And now what we want to do is to add some text to this. I'll just very quickly essentially take this object and bring it to the front, and also make sure that we don't have any text wrap on this object. It's quite possible that when you do these things from work that you've done before, that you're going to find that you have text wrap, and this is going to confuse you, and you're going to be thinking, well, why is this not allowing me to place an text on the top? Okay, so I'm going to do this now. Let's just make this white. Now, for the purposes of this exercise, I'm not going to spend a lot of time reorganizing this content. Obviously, I could do with making something a little bit more interesting typographically here on this panel, because effectively this is like a sort of page that appears as soon as somebody opens the book. So we need to make this a little bit more inspiring. We're going to come back to some of these other aspects later. Clearly we don't necessarily need this double spread here at all if we bring some of this content back onto the first page of the book. But essentially what we need to do now is to think about these pages as we go through. Each of these pages now needs to be considered in its entirety. Is this what we actually want? Where we find that we have space, for example here on this right hand side, and also at the beginning of this section on William Shakespeare's life, we've got room to put content here. So here you see that I've made a few changes to the book. I have some full page images like this one. I've also filled in this space to the left of the title for the Introduction to William Shakespeare's life. So I'm basically just going through the book, preparing for the double page spread, which will become a single landscape page. Similarly, for the play itself, I've done something similar. So I've now got a double page spread to start the play. I've also put an image to the left of the dramatis personae and to the left of the first act. And I have basically jobs to do now, going through each page or each section, certainly the beginning of each scene, and you know, making something more attractive for a single landscape page with two columns of text, which is what I'm going to get. So just having got that now on the screen, I'm just going to now show you what happens when we export this as a fixed layout ebook. That's the first attempt to see what this is going to come out like. So we do this from the book panel, and we're exporting the book to ePub. We're going for the fixed layout. I just need to make sure I put this in the right place. I've got a fixed version here, that's what I'm calling it. Okay, so now the settings are quite straightforward. First thing I'm going to do is to choose an image for the cover, and I've already previously prepared a cover image. Which is somewhere here. Okay, and I also want to continue to use the navigation table of contents, the one that's actually on the page for print. Now this is the important aspect, the options panel underneath here, because this, as you can see, has all the different settings that we want to make use of, I'm going to convert my spread to a landscape page, but as you can see there are other options here. We want to convert our images as we like, to whatever resolution we like. Depends on, if we go up to 300, obviously the image quality is going to be much better, but the file size will be much bigger. We're not particularly interested in adding a CSS file at this stage, but of course we do want the metadata. various other aspects to this as well, the author and so on. But I'm going to just briefly move over this. You must add this information in, and you will need to do this properly if you're going to distribute this book. Okay, let's see what happens. Now, when you're making a fixed layout ebook, you'll find that this part of the process takes far longer than you have done previously. And of course, we haven't updated the table of contents. That's why we're getting quite a lot of errors here. But the table of contents, of course, won't be correct, so that's why I'm getting those errors. We will need to go back through and refresh the table of contents after having reorganised the pages somewhat. Okay, so here is our first page. It starts with this. We can just simply move through. You'll notice this does not have any it doesn't give the ability to increase or reduce the font size. But we do have a table of contents which won't be working properly, actually. I know that because we didn't make an effort to change that. But after all, this is the first step, just to see what we're going to get. Now, as you can see, the footnotes are literally footnotes, and this is something that we need to address as well as we go through and make this work better. But for the next screencast, I'm going to look at how we might animate some of these images so that they appear on the screen in a little bit more interesting way, like fading up and moving in from one side or the other.